So I'll introduce Louis Rossman, who's going to be our MC for the rest of the program. You guys probably know him from his fantastically successful YouTube channel, and if not, he may have fixed your computer next door, so right on.
Thank you, Ian. So everybody here comes from a bit of a different background, may have different jobs, different political philosophies, different views, but I think the one thing we all have in common are the things that we find to be problems. In the UK, legislation has been proposed that would make the end-to-end encryption in applications like Signal illegal. Many people like Google and like the conveniences that they get from an Android phone, but what they don't like is that it is constantly keeping track of your location, even when Maps is not on, and uploading a timestamp, your location, and whether or not you were walking on public transportation or in a car, so it knows how to advertise to you. If a farmer wants to replace a moisture sensor in his tractor so it can work again, he can't just replace the moisture sensor and fix his tractor because the computer can sense that it's a different moisture sensor, and it demands that the dealer come out and plug his computer into your tractor to allow it to work again. And one of my personal favorites, since I use YouTube, one of my mentors on YouTube with 1 million subscribers, put up a video a few weeks ago and he said, "I'm warming to Django. I like Django." He's teaching people how to use it. And it's because he put "I'm warming to it" in the description, he now has a climate change misinformation warning on his video and 2 YouTube content strikes. The thing that we all have in common is that we have a desire for freedom and a desire to not be controlled by technology. Computers are supposed to serve us, and over the last 10 to 15 years, instead of them serving us, we are serving them our information, our privacy, and our rights on a silver platter. And the people that you're going to be hearing from today are people that want to see that end. So I'm happy to introduce our first speaker, Nick Merrill from Calyx Institute. He spent about 12 years of his life fighting a federal gag order because he refused to give up information on his customers, which I think he deserves a round of applause for, because to this day, he did not give the government any information on the users of his services. So, thank you so much.
Thanks, Louis. All right. Hey everyone, nice to be here today. Thank you, FUTO, for inviting me down. My name is Nick Merrill. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit organization called Calyx, the Calyx Institute. We're based in New York. We started in 2010. We have kind of a interesting business model that we're a nonprofit that offers mobile internet using these hotspot devices. You can sign up with cryptocurrency or cash or however you like, and we give away these devices. We don't have to know your real identity, and then you have unlimited mobile internet, 4G or 5G, and it's anonymous, so it's sort of like a burner hotspot. That gives us a different set of capabilities than other organizations which are grant-driven. Because sometimes people get a grant for, like, let's say $100,000 to develop some software thing. When that funding runs out, they kind of have to stop or they find new funding. We have this ongoing funding model based on our membership. It's allowed us to give grants to a bunch of other software projects that we do. And it's allowed us to develop our own free software. And the biggest thing that we've been doing since around 2018 is we have our own mobile operating system, our own version of Android. Now, maybe not everyone knows that Android, the standard Android you get on a phone, is based on something called the Android Open Source Project, or AOSP. Google, you know, there's a million things I could say that's wrong with Google, but one thing that's good about Google is that they've left Android as an open source project. And so the basis of it is there so that you can take it and kind of transplant a different concept or business model on top of it. And since we're a privacy organization, and our goal is to make privacy as easy for people to use as possible, we've taken the Android open source project and stripped out all the parts that spy on you, and then we've built in things like Signal and Tor into the operating system. The unfortunate thing is that it's hard to know when you use an Android phone which parts of it are open source and which parts of it are Google's proprietary software. Well, I found out the hard way that it turns out a lot of it is actually proprietary. Obviously, the things like Gmail and Google's cloud stuff is going to be proprietary. But even basic things like backup and restore is also proprietary. So when we took on this project, I remember having a conversation with Moxie Marlinspike from Signal about this. And he warned me at that time. This might have been 2010 or 11. He said, that's a huge undertaking. You're going to need like 20 engineers and millions of dollars in funding. And at the time I was like, maybe, I don't know. But like now, many years later, I see that he was totally right, and that's exactly what it's taken, and that's, that's what we've taken on. It's a huge thing, and it's ended up causing us to do all kinds of spin-off projects. So as I mentioned, the whole backup and restore part of Android is closed source. We built our own backup and restore suite, which is called Seed Vault. And it does client encrypted backups so that no one else has the keys but you. It uses the same 12-word system like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies so that you have this key that you can unlock your data with. And it's all standards-based because everything that we do is free software, and we're very focused on never reinventing the wheel and always building upon existing technologies. So you can either back your phone up to a USB stick that you plug into it, or you can use existing open source tech like WebDAV, which is a standard for you to back up to a server somewhere, like Nextcloud. We recommend people using Nextcloud. In addition, we've thought a lot about the problems of privacy on telephones from like different use cases, whether it's activists or journalists or people working in human rights, people that actually come into danger because of the data that's on their phone. So for us, the next thing that we wanted to take on after developing client-side encrypted backup and restore was ways to quickly erase your data if you're in trouble. So we built in panic functions into the phone. So the normal place where you get your power menu, you hold down the power button, it says, do you want to power down or restart or whatever? There's another button there that says panic. And if you hit that button, you can have sort of a preset set of actions that you want to take. It could be something like erase and uninstall Signal and all its data, erase and uninstall Tor browser, get rid of everything. And so we've done a lot of interesting stuff to try to build this based on working with other open source projects on the outside. There's a app store called F-Droid that we bundle, and F-Droid is all open source software. That's also been vetted for not having proprietary spying libraries in it. There's another project called Aurora Store, which allows you to install anything from the Google Play Store, but it also tells you about the privacy of these apps and whether they have trackers built into them or whether they have what they call anti-features, like working with people that collect data. So it at least lets you know what you're getting into. It tells you, you're informed at that point. We were lucky to have met Louis at one of the hacker events that we go to. We went to the Hackers on Planet Earth conference in New York this past summer, and Louis came up and introduced himself over at our booth. We were there trying to get people to sign up and get our hotspots. It was just, I guess, to me, it seemed like pure luck. I think Louis knew that we were going to be there and was coming to say hi. But we are really honored to have FUTO support. FUTO gave us a grant to work on this open source software, and we hope that we can develop this into an ongoing relationship with FUTO and that we can have cross-pollination with all different projects that are going on under the FUTO umbrella. And yeah, I'm really jazzed about this project, and I'm happy to be here to talk about it with you all. I was told that the format was supposed to be that I talk for a while and then open the floor up to Q&A. Is that still the plan? I don't know. Yes? I'm going to open the floor up then. If anyone has any questions or comments or anything. I would actually say that they've done very little to throw blocks in our way. We've been waiting for the other shoe to drop since 2018, and it hasn't happened yet. So this app that we use called Aurora Store lets you install apps from the Play Store, but it's not the official Play Store app. And technically, I think that's a violation of the terms of service. But we didn't make it. We just offer it to people for them to use. And over time, like I I consider our organization's peer group, people like EFF, the Freedom of the Press Foundation, organizations like that. They're our friends. Those are people I see at conferences and give them hugs and stuff. And over time, I don't know how to put this delicately, like sadly, or maybe it's just a natural progression of things. Certain people that I know have gone from places like EFF and now work at Google, or now work at Meta, or now work at Twitter, or maybe they don't anymore, but they were going to all these places. And there are people inside all these organizations that believe the same things that we do. They want freedom too, but then they're also just small cogs in this giant machine, and they can't really make it happen per se. But yeah, nobody at Google has ever done anything against us so far. Knock on wood. There's no wood here. But like some people there have actually been very supportive of us. Like they even called us up and said, what privacy things do you want to see in the Android open source project in the next year and in the next 5 years? So I can obviously criticize Google's business model in a lot of different ways, but I wouldn't want to criticize some of the good people that are in there that are trying to help us like sneak cool privacy ideas in through the back door. At the beginning, there were a lot of issues. There was a lot of compatibility problems, and there is an app that's built into our OS. It's called MicroG, and MicroG is an open source re-implementation of some of Google's APIs, the platform APIs, and it's only made by one person. It's a one-man band, and it's a guy in Germany, and he's been doing this, and he started at the top with like the highest priority and then moves down the list. And the first priority, I think, was push notifications. You had to get push notifications working. Like I'm getting them on my phone right now through MicroG. The second thing that he worked on after that was the mapping API, so that location and mapping apps would work. And then he's subsequently gone down the list to smaller, lesser important ones. We helped put up, there's a font service that apps use. They request some font and then it comes from Google. So one of the baseline things that we require in our project is that everything is free software and that we give it out on an open source license and that it hopefully helps other projects. I mentioned that we built Seed Vault. Seed Vault started as being our project and it was in our OS, but now it's in about 6 different Android distributions. It's in Lineage OS, which is the biggest one. It's in Graphene, it's in Copperhead, it's in a bunch of others. I'm not even sure how many. And we're really happy about that because even if we go away tomorrow, we've done something to sort of help the whole Android ecosystem suck less, for lack of a better term. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. You? We don't share much code from them. They use Seed Vault from us. I think that our focus and their focus is different enough that we don't use too much of their code. Our updater, the thing that updates the OS that we've been using for years, is built on work of theirs, but we're actually replacing it with something different that sort of has better UX. But there hasn't been too much, and we actually work much more closely with Lineage, mostly on the app level. Like they have cool things like music players and clocks and stuff like that. So we work on some feature stuff with them, and also when we have developed support for different phones and different platforms, we often just hand it right to Lineage because they have like 1,200 developers. So then we know that they're going to keep maintaining it and keep tweaking it, and we don't have as much manpower as them. So for us, it makes sense to work with organizations that have many, many sets of eyeballs and many developers to try to, find synergy. Because since we're small, we have 6 or 7 developers, and it's okay. Our people are all paid, so it's a little different. Lineage are all volunteers. Maybe that seems like I sort of avoided your question, and maybe I sort of did, but I hope it sort of answers it. Not so much. I mean, we have full source. So we can change anything we want, although some parts of the hardware support are proprietary. So you have binary closed source drivers for the modem, for the screen, for the fingerprint reader, and so on. And these come from the maker of the SoC, the chip in the phone. So for many years it was Qualcomm. Google's phones were all made with Qualcomm chips. Now they're doing their, quote unquote, their own. It's not really their own, it's sort of made in conjunction with Samsung. But ultimately, there are parts of the phone. There's something called the baseband processor, which is like the radio that talks to the towers, and it does the Bluetooth, and and so all this kind of stuff, the hardware driver layer, we don't have source for. We can't really know what's going on in there completely. But when it comes to the operating system, we have complete source for it. We can do anything, and I guess it's sort of it's a built-in assumption that this is the lay of the land. There are certain parts we'll have, there's certain parts we won't have, and what can we do? Where's the low-hanging fruit where we can give people better privacy within these certain set of restrictions? So some of the first things we tried to do is encrypt data as much as we could. The three goals of CalyxOS from the beginning were, 1, encrypt all communications as much as possible, automatically if possible. 2, take countermeasures against metadata collection as much as possible. 3, take countermeasures against geolocation tracking as much as possible. So that's like the biggest problems. There are smaller ones too. Then there's ad tracking, then there's this, then there's that, but we're looking at the big picture and just seeing how can we reduce it, like from a harm reduction approach. The idea isn't necessarily that you're going to go from 100 to 0 and there'll be no more threats anymore. The threats are constantly evolving, and it's a cat and mouse game. But we're looking at what are the biggest problems and how much can we reduce them. If not 100%, isn't 60% still a respectable reduction, if that makes sense? Well, I'm trying to think. Basically nothing. Yeah, it depends on what you do, though. That's the whole thing. It's like you start off in a really good position because our phone comes with only open source software and nothing from Google. But
you don't know that for sure because you don't have the access to the drivers, or am I wrong?
No, that's true. We don't know what's in the drivers, but the drivers come from Qualcomm, not from Google. What you do know is that of the software that's in the operating system, it's free of Google software. So, and when I say that, I mean things like Gmail, Google Maps, all that kind of stuff. But often, what many users do, the first thing they do is they install Google Maps because it works better than the free software mapping app that we give you, which is called Organic Maps. Now, for many people, that's a fair trade-off. It's like, I've gone from Google knows every step of what I'm doing every day to like, they know where I go when I put in 2 points into Google Maps. Still, you can use Google Maps without an account. MicroG lets you use Google services without signing into Google, so it's not necessarily attached to your name and your email. So it's all basically, it starts off a huge improvement, and you may chip away at the incremental improvements and make it slightly less private for your convenience if that's what you want to do. Hopefully that kind of answers your question. Okay, one more. The question is about how much housekeeping work is there involved with providing the monthly security updates and sort of rebasing our set of changes on top of the new versions of Android that come out like once a year, once every half a year or something like that. There's Android. We started out on Android 8. So my experience is like we were on Android 8, then 9, 10, 11, 12, we're on 13 now. So we've done the rebase that many times. Every single month, there is a security update from Google with patches that repair security holes that have been discovered in the subsequent time. It is a ton of work. It's like we have 6 people full-time, and some of them are working on the sub-projects, like the backup, or we have a built-in firewall in the phone OS that lets you block different apps. So say, like, I don't trust this app, I'm not going to let it go online at all. Or this app can only go on through Tor, or this app can only go through a VPN. So some people are just working on those things, but most of the people, when we have to do security updates or when we do major version upgrades, it's like all hands on deck. And everyone is working on it for like weeks at a time, and there's like thousands of moving parts. And one of the great things that we've been able to do, actually, with the support from FUTO, is hire another full-time developer, is buy much more super cutting-edge build hardware, which we desperately needed. Like, you need to have machines with like 128 cores and like terabytes of RAM just to build Android. It's a huge project. And we're also hiring a full-time QA person that's going to sit there and just try to flip eSIM on and off and try to, anyway, hopefully that answers it. I mean, I could tell you more. I can link you to our tracker where you can see the issues and see it going on in real time, and you'll get a sense pretty quick of like how much of an undertaking it is, and how right Moxie Marlinspike was to tell me that I was biting off more than I understood back in the day. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I guess I will thank you for your time. I will hand this back to Louis.